Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 6-7 of the Playoff Push podcast. I'm your host, Jack Dobbins, and I'm co-hosting with my guy, Cayden Stewart today, his first time co-hosting on the show. Let's lead off. Cayden, how you doing?
I'm doing fantabulous today, Jack. How about you?
All good here. It's great having you back on. But today, we're both going to be interviewing a current NFL player, Adam Gotsis from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. How's it going?
Good, man. Good. Appreciate you guys having me. Excited to get into some conversations and, wrap up the season.
I mean, you've had one heck of a journey to the NFL. I mean, we've started to see the international pathway come up, but back when you were coming to the league, it was much less of a promoted thing by the NFL as it is now. And something that I've been aware of is that there's Australian rules football, which is
Yeah.
practically as similar to the NFL as you're getting in another country. But you only switched to American football when you came over to play at Georgia Tech or right before it. So, at what point did you psychologically begin to see yourself not just as a converted Aussie, but more so as someone who belonged in the NFL?
Yeah, it's a bit of a tough one. We had like American football. It was like a rec league type of thing
Okay.
in Australia. So I did play a bit of that. Probably started when I was about 15, 16 years old. But yeah, predominantly played Aussie rules football, a little bit of rugby just in school, and just basketball, soccer, just all the sports as a kid, just love sport. But then when I started seeing myself as like NFL's a possibility, I didn't really see that till probably I'd say after my sophomore year, heading into my junior year, just because we had a guy, Jeremiah Tauchu at Georgia Tech with me, who he came out as he finished his senior year when I was a sophomore. And me and him, he was an outside backer, edge guy. I was an interior D lineman. So we played a lot together. He ended up, you know, getting drafted pretty high. I think it was in the 50s, pick 50, around there, his year. So just in contact with him as that process was happening with him, he was like agents were asking him about me and things like that. So that's when I was like, wow, this could really be like an opportunity. But before that, my goal was strictly like get to college, have a chance to get a 4 year degree from a great school, and then whatever happens, happens with the sport, you know. I think that was like a blessing in itself just to be offered a scholarship and get over here and have a chance to play in the ACC and go to Georgia Tech and do that. So yeah, I didn't really realize like probably up until after my sophomore year, and then it definitely became more of a reality heading into my senior year that I might have a chance here if I can put some good film out there, work my butt off, and see what happens.
Staying on the Georgia Tech note, when starting out at Georgia Tech, what aspect of football did you find the most difficult to adjust to?
The scheme definitely was up there just because I'm going from playing like a rec league competition where you might have like six different plays and that's it. The scheme was one thing, but then also just catching up to these guys in terms of like my physical body. So many of them had been lifting in high school and stuff since they were like 12 years old. I really didn't like get in the weight room like that probably until I was about 17, 18, and I was first like trying to get over to college, realizing like, hey, I gotta, lift differently. Like I was going to the gym, but it wasn't like for performance. It wasn't any of that stuff. It was just like you going in there with some mates messing around. But then to get into more of a, Olympic style program and doing cleans, bench press, squat, basically 3 times a week, and then, adding in all the other stuff. That's what really got me like, okay, I need to develop my body more to catch up to these guys. Because I mean, I think my freshman year I got there, we did like the 225 rep test. I think I had like 10 reps the first time I tried it. And that was the first time I've ever done that. And there were like other freshmen playing my position that were like 16, 17 reps. And I'm like, okay, there's like a big difference there. But, you know, it's not all about the weight room. It's about the field too. So I just like kind of said, you know what, I'm going to catch up once I get in this program, once I get, dialed in on that. But yeah, it was mainly just I'd say catching up physically to them and then learning the scheme. A lot of them had high school systems where they've had to learn multiple positions or fronts or, schemes. And for me, it was like the guy calling our defense was just our middle linebacker. We didn't really have like coordinators per se in Australia. It was just like the quarterback was the offensive coordinator, middle linebacker was the defensive coordinator, and you're just playing. Should I just line up in like a nine technique and just burn the edge or, take an inside move and see what happens? Just know whether I got the container or I don't. So that's pretty much what it was. And that, I mean, it was fun, it was free. So yeah, it was a great time playing, and it did teach me the game. It taught me the physicality of it, how all the pieces are super important. And just it taught me how to play hard, play with effort, all that stuff. I kind of learnt before I even got to college. So when I got to college, it was no real like crazy jump in terms of that. It was more just catching up on the mental side. But when I played back home, it was like open age group. So I was already playing against like 30-year-olds and stuff like that. Um, and then, I get to college and I'm like, all right, I've played against some like older guys before. I know kind of, what it's like to be maybe undersized or not as strong as these guys and how you have to use what you have to your advantage. So, I came into Georgia Tech. I ended up playing as a freshman and, didn't have to redshirt and yeah, kind of took off from there.
Captain senior year. I mean, that Georgia
Yeah,
Tech time, that was
yeah.
something.
It was a great 4 years. Really wouldn't change much looking back. I think it was, just a great experience. Had a bunch of great teammates. We had a lot of success. Wish we could have finished a few seasons a bit different. Played in two ACC championships. And then, senior year, unfortunately got injured. But, I've just felt like at that moment, everything that I put out there in terms of on the film, around the facility, around the buildings, towards my education, I just maximized every opportunity. So, I was just like content with who I was and where I was at that point. And if I go in the draft and I get drafted, that'd be great. If I end up becoming a free agent and I get a workout somewhere, that'd be great too. So, I was just super excited for whatever opportunity came next. And yeah, I ended up getting drafted and yeah, that kicked off my NFL career.
And you mentioned the Orange Bowl, and there was actually a perfect segue to my next question. As someone who's played in both high caliber and lower caliber bowl games, was there any difference in interest or excitement to participate amongst players in the GT locker rooms?
Yeah, I don't think we had really anyone that was, gonna hold out or not play in the bowl games. I know I think my first bowl game we played against was the Sun Bowl. It was in El Paso. We played against USC that year. I think Buckley was in there, was their quarterback. I think he actually didn't play that game because he was coming out in the draft, didn't want to get hurt. Um, and we ended up beating them. And I just think like to me, it's like you've spent these 4 years with these guys. I understand, there's risks with everything. Um, but, I'm never a guy that would just like not play and kind of leave my guys hanging in that situation. But, you got to think about yourself at certain times. You got to be selfish at certain times. So I can understand the decisions. But yeah, I mean, playing in that Orange Bowl was awesome. It was such a great opportunity, and we ended up getting the win. And I remember it was like the game finished. It was New Year's at the exact same time, so like we're on the field celebrating, fireworks are going off. It was definitely one of the memories that I'll keep for a long, long time.
Have you still followed Georgia Tech football since your move to the NFL? Like especially the
Yeah,
legacy run they had in the first, first
no,
half of this season?
no, definitely I have. I have. It's been unfortunate, like that I haven't been able to get back there. I think I've been back for one game, in the last 10 years because it's just
Wow.
been, I mean, I've been playing.
It's
So it's
busy.
like I'm always traveling. I'm always prepping for a game. I'm in the hotel be night before a game. So can't really get there. But, I've had a lot of friends go back. I know they had like that 2014 10-year reunion. That year we won the Orange Bowl and they had everyone come back a year ago. And, it was disappointing to miss out on that, but you just see like how many guys it meant to guys that aren't playing football anymore, that was their last memory of football, and how special that was. But yeah, I definitely keep in touch with a lot of people around the program. I've got a few former teammates that are coaching, part of like the operations side and stuff now. So yeah, definitely keep track of him. And I was rooting for him this year, and unfortunately, kind of tale of two seasons, similar to what happened to us. With the Bucks, we started hot and then kind of fizzled out a bit and couldn't find our feet. And it's tough to win football games when you start getting on the backside of the momentum instead of you causing the momentum.
Yeah, it is tricky. One season can change a whole lot of things.
Yeah,
So after you went from Georgia Tech, then heading to the Denver Broncos
yeah, I
in
like
the
it.
second round of the draft, you still remain the highest drafted Australian in the history of the NFL. At what point did you realize the label would follow you as long as it remains true? And was there pressure that came from it?
Um, like honestly, like I said earlier, I got injured my senior season, so I only played about 6 games in my senior season in college, and then I tore my ACL, so I missed out on like the back half of the season. Um, so heading into the draft, I didn't even know where I was going to go. My agent was saying, potentially second round, potentially fifth round, just depends, what people think, how you can bounce back, things like that. But, I really just laid it out to like, hey, I've done all the work that I can. Whatever happens, happens. Like I said earlier, if a team wants me, they want me. If they don't, I'll find a way. I just need a foot in the door somewhere, whether it's a drafted opportunity or an undrafted opportunity. I know once I'm in that building, once I can work, once I get healthy, it's all on you. So, but it's a proud, you know, title to hold. I'm very proud of it. The amount of work I put in, the amount of sacrifice, not only from me, from my family, from the people around me that helped me get to being in that position to get drafted, the coaches, just everyone around me. That's a representation of them too. It's not just for me. And you know, 10 years on to still have it is pretty cool. But, I'm hoping that, my career and the path that I've taken has inspired a lot more other Aussies to come through the pipeline. And, I'd love for someone else to get up there and get drafted that high too. I think instead of it looking at it like a title, it's more of like a benchmark of where we can reach. And, I'm hoping a few years from now, someone can, eclipse that and get a bit higher, and then someone else will get even higher. And then, it's just paving the way for international guys, not only Australian, just all over the world, just showing like, hey, if you're committed to it and you're willing to sacrifice, put in the time, put in the work, good things can happen and it can change your life.
Yeah, especially the Eagles fan like that with Jordan Mailata being another
Yeah.
highlight of the international portal.
Definitely. The growth of just foreign athletes, all over the place. The kicker from the Saints is like Irish and came from Ireland. There's, a ton of people coming through the Pathways program. And it's just, yeah, even Jordan's success and what he's done, it's amazing. And yeah, it's just, hopefully like us international guys can just keep paving the way and growing this game globally. Because at the end of the day, there's nothing better than just the best of the best getting out there and doing what we can to grow the sport and represent our countries while doing it.
And then building out that with the NFL expanding internationally now to have these different games in numerous countries, and then hinting at the possibility of maybe international teams or games that are more season length in international countries. How would you feel about playing games against international teams as a foreign athlete yourself?
Yeah, I think it would be pretty cool. I think if we can get the caliber of the teams built up to where, it's a good product and, player safety is still considered high, just because I know, anytime you do any of these like kind of exhibition games and things like that, it's like these guys might be looking at it as an opportunity to, give their best shot against a guy that's in the league, is doing the thing and go all out when, there's just can be safety concerns, things like that. But I think, once the sport grows, and for example, if there's a NFL Europe that comes back or an NFL Pacific or something like that, and there's a tournament played there, and then, the team that wins the championship of that tournament might get to, you know, be involved in preseason games or things like that where players can, be scouted and things like that. I think it'll be a good way to kind of leapfrog into like this world game where you don't just have to be in the NFL to be in like the scouting pool. You can be in these other competitions and still have scouts' eyes on you.
So throughout your career, you've been on a few different organizations, Denver, Jacksonville, your time in Tampa right now. You've had times where you've anchored down the interior defensive line, and you've also had times where your role shifted to a more like lower area of the team. How do you personally measure success when your snap count isn't necessarily guaranteed on a year by year basis?
Yeah, it's tough. I went from Denver starting a lot of games, Jacksonville starting a lot of games. Kind of in my last year or two in Jacksonville, shifted from more of like strictly defense to, a lot on special teams, rotational defensive guy. Similar when I was with the Colts for a little bit, similar there. And then this year, being put on practice squad. It can be tough at times. It can kind of mess with your flow of your headspace and, obviously thinking, you want to be out there, you want to be helping, but it's finding how you can contribute to the team winning at the end of the day. And for me, it was, when I was starting and doing those things, it was the same preparation that I still do today. This year I was on practice squad, but I'm still in there taking notes as if I'm playing the game. You never know what can happen during the week. Um, and even like throughout the week when, I'm giving the scout look to the offense, I'm still going up against the best guys in the league. I'm going up against, Tristan Wirfs, Luka Decky, the starting O-line, Baker. And to me, it's a responsibility that I got to give the best look that they can get. So when they come Sunday, they're prepared, I'm not just out there following the card. Okay, I'm this guy, just stay in the three technique and do that. No, I'm communicating with these guys. Hey, what moves does this guy work? Like what type of rusher is he? Is he, an arm over guy? Is he trying to like long arm you? Like, so I'm trying to I talk to the O-line so I can give them the best look and try and prep them for the week and then go out there and practice and just give them the best look because at the end of the day, when we win on Sundays, I win on Sunday too. I'm part of the team. I might not be in that starting role, but I'm still contributing in the way in the most I know how. Um, and then even for our defensive guys, it's still giving them advice on the sideline. Hey, if you see this formation, anticipate this block or this play. On the film they showed this. So, they're a downhill run team. They're not trying to outside zone you. So when you're seeing these formations, just this is how I would play it. This is how you can anticipate. This is what to look for. So still just contributing as a leader in a quiet way, as a veteran guy who's played a lot of ball and seen a lot of ball, doing all I can to help these guys prepare to win on Sundays. So yeah, just adapting to your role. And I don't think sitting there and being upset about what's happening, that's not going to help anyone. And surely not going to help you. That energy that you can bring, if it's all negative and selfish, it's going to reflect and people in the building are going to feed off that and look at you a certain way. And, don't get me wrong, it is disappointing, when you're coming into work, you're putting in work and, sometimes it feels like it's going unrewarded or unnoticed, but they notice a lot of stuff in the building. And, if you can be positive, if you can help the team continue to, try to be successful and work and do those things, that's all you can do. And, like even this year, me and the O-line would get in a few like scuffles and stuff, like even at practice, because like at the end of the day, they're about to go out there and go to war with some of these guys, on Sunday. So, if I can be physical and give them a good look and a hard look, and if they get a little annoyed and I get a little annoyed, it's football. It's what's going to happen on Sunday. I'm not just trying to make their week an easy week where they can just go through the motions and, oh, this guy's going to be in this position and it's all going to be fine and dandy. But come Sunday, it's live bullets coming at them. So if I can prep them during the week and give them those looks, hopefully it can lead to them being successful at their job.
And the energies and facilities is certainly a big storyline this time of the year, the season coming to an end, and especially with the quote unquote Black Monday of the coaching cycle. So, what was it like from a player perspective having to go through the Black Monday cycle and a few coach firings in your career?
Yeah, I've had a lot of coaches be fired. I think in Denver it was, I think I had three head coaches in 4 years there. Got to Jacksonville, I think it was three head coaches in 4 years there. Um, and then yeah, went to the Colts and then went to Tampa, and they've kept the same coaches. But yeah, definitely got when that coaching kind of carousel comes around, and the guy who you're playing for is no longer there. Um, it's a bit different as a player because you're not really sure who the new hiring's going to be. Are they going to bring in their own staff? Are your position coach is going to be the same, coordinator's going to be the same, things like that. But kind of during this time, I feel like you're really just working on yourself. You're getting yourself healthy. You what that's out of your control. What's going to happen? What you can control is getting in the best shape you can, working your butt off, showing up to OTAs, being involved, getting into the scheme. When that new coaching hire happens, flying out there, meeting the coach, talking to the coach, getting his opinion of you, your opinion of him, just collaborating because it is a big collaboration at the end of the day. So, um, going through all those coaching changes, I think it just adds fuel to your own process, saying, okay, well, this new coach is going to come in, he's going to bring in his own staff or his own people. He's probably got his own free agents he wants to bring in, his own guys he wants to draft. It adds more competition, adds a bit of fire coming into the off-season training camp. Everyone's trying to make great impressions and kind of change the culture a bit of what's been happening, depending on how the last year went, whether it was good or bad. And you're in this no man's land for a little, but once that new coach is hired, it's kind of like, all right, everyone's on board, we're all moving forward, and that's all you can do is really lock in and get on to the next thing. You can't sit back and say, well, if last year we did this guy, it's just last year's already happened. We got to keep moving forward and keep searching for how we can get better.
And during your career, you've played defensive tackle, which is not only one of the most physical jobs in all of sports, also one of the most misunderstood. It's not a position where stats necessarily show off what you guys do all that well. What's the biggest misconception fans have about D tackles and what it actually takes to survive week to week in the trenches?
Yeah, I think it is one of the toughest spots on the field. I mean, it's probably the only position where you're getting hands on you every play. O-line, they can get away with like not really touching someone on a play. They might be blocking a defensive end, but he drops in coverage, so they don't block anyone. But D tackle, a guard or a center is putting their hands on you every play. So, every down you're accounted for. They're making sure because you've got the shortest path to the quarterback, to the running back, so they got to take care of you guys first. But it definitely does go underappreciated. I think, people look at numbers all the time and stats after the game, and they don't really understand, the scheme of the defense. There've been games where, we're blitzing off one side and I'm the D tackle on the other side that has to contain the passer on the other side, and majority of the time you're not going to make a play on that play because you're just looping out for contain. You got to rush against the guard, then the tackle's going to pick you up. So you got to beat two guys to basically make an impact on the play. But my job is to make sure the quarterback doesn't run away from the pressure, and then the guys that are on the pressure side are going to get home and get the stat, whether it's a hit, hurry, sack. So it's about like working within the scheme, again, like, a lot of the defense I played in my early days was two gap, four technique. Basically I'm head up on the tackle. You're going to get double teamed most plays. You're going to be on the back side of a lot of plays or on the front side where I'm setting the point and it's going to cut back to the other guys. And you might not show up on the stat sheet as like, hey, I've got 10 tackles this game, but your linebacker might have 10 tackles because you're taking double teams all game and your linebacker's hitting the gap and making tackles. So, the way defensive scheme works is, there's only one or two stats every play that are going to be made, but it's, am I doing my job? Am I in my gap? Am I causing disruption that other guys can make plays? It all feeds hand in hand. And, um, I think when you can get a defensive front that works really well together, that can set the edge, guys off the backside can make plays. If the front side never really sets the edge, the guy off the backside's never going to make the play, and vice versa. If the guy on the front side setting the edge, the guy on the backside, if he's doing his job, will make the play. So it's just it's working together, pass rushing, same thing. You got to rush together as a team. You can't have one guy just, rush high and now and you've got one guy who's, the interior guy might be taking on the double team, the center guard, and the quarterback just runs through the B gap. Doesn't really help anyone. But if you have a like continuity between your rushes and understanding, okay, this guy's going to rush high. I might stay a bit higher in the B gap and then, close it off before just like closing it off up the middle. So that way it's like we're kind of keeping the quarterback in the pocket. So it's all just knowing who you're with, knowing how guys play, and then working together. Because I mean, the common goal is get the get the ball, get the guy on the ground, and don't let him score. So
Seems simple, cut and dry. It's really
yeah,
not.
it's really not. It's really not. So
There we
especially
go.
with the quality of guys around the league now, I mean, at the quarterback position, from when I came in the league to who they are now, it's like you gotta, half the week is like, how are we gonna contain this quarterback? And then when we do, how can we keep pressure on him while doing that? How can we make sure he's not just getting rid of the ball, quick? Then, you switch to the running back. It's like, how are we going to contain this guy? How are we going to stop him from going off like they have been? So, yeah, it's a very different game, and teams are so well balanced now in the offensive schemes and what they do. Yeah, it's awesome though. I love it. I love like the chess game within the game. I love the competition. I love the challenge every week. There's no real week that you're just coming into it like, hey, this team's going to be a walk in the park. Every team's going to, fight because, they're getting paid to. So, yeah, you really got to put in your work and watch the film and study and, have a great week of prep, and then hopefully you can be successful on game day.
When you're far retired, we're talking 30 years after you hang up the cleats. If a kid were to look up your name on Google and try to figure out what your football career was all about, what do you want them to see or think about first, either as you as a person or you as a player?
I think what we've kind of talked about, I think it would be, had this international guy play 10 plus years in the NFL. I think that would be a cool question that if a kid was to look it up and see, damn, this guy's played 10 plus years and he wasn't, came over to the States when he was 19, 20. And then as a person and player, I definitely would want people to see like, hey, this guy was just a great teammate, a great role model for the guys in the locker room, around him, young kids, on just how to be a professional, how to show up every day. Might not have had the most glamorous career in terms of getting paid the most or getting the most reps and things like that, but you find a way to be productive with what you get, and you make the most of your opportunities. That's kind of what I've just based my career off is if it's 5 plays, 10 plays, I'm going to give them all I got for that. But I'm always going to be positive guy in the locker room. I'm always going to be positive in the community, and just try and help as much as I can, whether it's passing on the game to the younger guys, the guys that are coming up that are younger in the league, and educating them and giving back what the game's given me. I think that's huge. So I'd love to just be remembered as like a guy who, always helped the guys around him, always tried to make the team better, and did all he could.
That's going to do it here. Episode 67 of the Playoff Push podcast. Any final words, Adam?
Nah, just appreciate you guys having me, man. I always like the opportunity to chop it up and just talk ball, man. I love the game, and I love, being able to share my story with people and with an audience. And you never know who's listening. You never know who's gonna listen to this and, motivate them that little bit, and hopefully help them achieve their goals, whether it's football related or just life in general. Yeah, just appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on, Cayden. Thank you for co-hosting as well. That's going to do it here. Episode 67 of the Playoff Push podcast. I'm your host, Jack Dobbins, and have a great rest of your day.